Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for checking out Shinsen88 Gaming, and welcome back one last time, for now, to Oblivion. If you've been with the channel for a little bit, you would know that I just finished a lengthy series lasting several years, 99 episodes, completing Oblivion, the DLC, the Oblivion Overhaul questline, as well as several other modded additional lands and lengthy quest mods. So I wanted to give one final send-up to the series, again for now, more on that at the end of the video, where I kind of looked at some of the areas that are my favorite areas in Oblivion that maybe are not on the beaten path necessarily. Areas that you can come to and look at all these years later. I think Oblivion's almost 20 years old at this point, which is kind of crazy to think about. But areas that still hold up visually or thematically that you can come to and just kind of chill out, admire the scenery, and go, wow, this game still looks amazing all these years later. Of course, as long as you're not looking at the character models. But these are the kind of areas that I'm thinking of. We're here up near Underpaw Cave, and we've got this nice view of the changing colors of the leaves. We can come down here and overlook the Imperial city, admire that great view distance, even if some of the level of detail stuff is not quite up to snuff for a modern game. Still looks great even all these years later. That's the kind of stuff that I'm thinking of for this one. So I have a number of locations that we're going to look at. I don't know off the top of my head right now exactly how many it's going to be. They're not in any particular order, but it's just areas that maybe you haven't looked at before, and if you're wanting to jump back into Oblivion, go kind of hang out and look at them. Obviously there's a big element of nostalgia that comes into this. If you played this back in the day, you probably, having come off the heels of Morrowind and games like that, saw the huge step up in graphical fidelity and technology for this game, and wandered around just kind of admiring the sights and how impressive it was back in the day. But honestly, like I said, it still looks really good even today. That huge view distance, obviously using level of detail and other tricks, but the way the grass and the trees move, the colors, that's one thing that Oblivion really did nail, is the color, especially when compared to some other Bethesda games. So without any further ado, let's hop into what I think are some of the comfiest locations in Oblivion. Alright, I'm going to start us out with a bit of an obvious one here. This is the Anvil docks and lighthouse area. If you've been with the channel for a while, you would know that Anvil is my favorite city in the game. And this particular area definitely gives you sort of a sense of that comfy that we're looking for. It's very lively with a lot of NPCs that kind of walk around and hang out. You got this chick painting the lighthouse. You got the guards, obviously. You got, where's our portly friend over here?
How are you?
You're not portly.
Good to see you.
Well, anyways, you got the ships that are docked here, and then the lighthouse itself, which is pretty nice. Now, granted, that's as long as you don't go under the lighthouse or in the lighthouse, but we won't worry about that. We're not going to count that.
You look like someone who's comfortable in heavy armor.
Just generally a very nice area. Definitely one that you could kind of just come and hang out in and look around, admire the scenery. And I think the entire town of Anvil really qualifies for that. But beyond just this little dock area, if we were to then continue and go out up the path here, we're led to another nice little spot. Let's hop up here and take a look. Uh-huh. Yeah, in fact, right here at the Lady Stone, this could definitely be a spot that qualifies. You got this whole broad area overlooking the bay, or the sea, I guess, as it were. And you can look back here. There's a nice Oblivion gate that's smoldering there. We'll pretend that doesn't exist. But yeah, definitely this is kind of the sort of area that I'm thinking of for this episode. But we're going to get into some that are a little bit less obvious. So let's move on. Alright, another area I would like to present for your consideration of comfiest place in Oblivion would be this little area right here. We're up in, I guess, the Colovian Highlands or the Gerald Mountains, kind of the transition in between the two, at this little I don't know what you want to call this little paved area with these two beacons or torches. We can look out down the mountain. We see the Imperial City way off in the distance, like way off in the distance. And the thing that I like about this area is that it's kind of off the beaten path, and that there aren't really any locations up here to find. It's just kind of going up towards what ultimately ends up being Hermaeus Mora's shrine. But I remember finding this for the first time back in the day, and it gives you a little bit of sense of wonder, like, what am I going towards? I feel like I'm going towards something important. And of course, by the time you make it to the shrine, you probably can't even do the quest yet. But hey, it is what it is. I also like the way that the area kind of transitions, like I mentioned, between the highlands and the actual mountains. So we see the trees kind of drop out, and we're led to this more snowy area. I mean, there's kind of a line here, but it's pretty organic the way that it moves in between the two. And now we're up in the snowy Gerald Mountains. Another kind of cool thing about this area is if we look out to the north or the northwest, we can actually see the edge of the map. So back in the day, if you played this, you probably tried going out there, only to, of course, be met with the, hey, you can't go this way, dialogue box. But it's still cool and triggers that sense of wonder when you look out there and go, wow, they actually modeled and textured all this. That's pretty cool. Even if there isn't actually anything out there. But another area that is right nearby that maybe could have been chosen instead of that one down there. I just kind of like those beacons or torches. But if we continue up the path a little bit, we'll make it to this wooden bridge over here. And I think that's another one that's kind of in the running. Don't jump off the cliff, buddy. And I'm so fast. Yeah, you might want to turn around. Okay, anyways. Deer are not, in fact, the subject of this video. Yeah, right here is kind of what I was thinking of. You can definitely look out and admire the scenery from here. Of course, it's a cloudy day, so that maybe not as nice and as grand as it could have been. But were there no enemies nearby? There we go. Let's rest 24 hours and see if the fog goes away. I'm sure there's a console command to change the weather, but I don't know it off the top of my head. But what's cool about this particular spot is you can really look out and see all across the world. So let's see if we come back and it's even foggier than before. No, that's quite nice. So yeah, if we look out here, we've got the Imperial City there, of course, and then that's going to be what, Coral? Yeah. Pulling nostalgia into this a little bit. Back in the day, it was quite the thing to look out there and be able to see that far away and then look on the map and go, dang, that's how far away that is. And to this day, even almost 20 years later, it still looks just as good as it did back then in a lot of ways. Now, obviously, some of the stuff doesn't hold up as much. The level of detail on the distant lands is maybe not as good as it could be, but I still think that looks pretty impressive even today. So, would recommend. Come check out this general area up here. Let's check out the next one. All right, I got another one here that probably came to mind when you were trying to think about the areas that give you comfy and cozy feelings in Oblivion. This, of course, is the Imperial City Waterfront. And I think what it comes down to with this area is that you probably spent a great deal of time here on every playthrough that you did. The first, or most likely first player home is here. The shack, which is plenty comfy and cozy in its own right. And of course, were you to come here after doing a full playthrough, DLC and additional lands included, the amount of wealth that is inside this building is enough to probably buy an entire kingdom. But that's neither here nor there. Even just this is pretty comfy and cozy. But the area itself is nice in that it is, again, kind of like the Anvil docks, bustling with activity a little bit. You've got some quests that began here that you'll probably have memories of. And generally just the architecture is pretty cool. One of the things that I also like about this area is that it's technically part of the Imperial City, but it's still out in the world. So you can run out into the distance. You know, one of the things that was kind of lost from Morrowind to Oblivion and continued in Skyrim is the seamless, gateless cities, which of course can be fixed through mods. But this kind of gives you an idea of what that would look like were there no, hard transitions between cities and the overworld. Of course, we got the bloated float here, which has a pretty fun side quest in it. But generally, yeah, I just kind of like this area. You got the lake, of course, and then the player home, and just having probably a lot of memories of this area. Make it kind of nice. Of course, if you join the Thieves Guild, you got a lot of buddies roaming the area, and it's kind of nice to just come and hang out in. So, yeah, kind of an obvious one, but definitely one that I felt I needed to include. Let's move on. Okay, moving on to the slightly more obscure. This is actually the area that I first thought of and inspired the idea for this particular video. We are down here in essentially the southeastern corner of the map on an unmarked location on this little island here. Closest location, I guess, is the Bogw Camp. There is nothing on this island. There's no reason to ever come here, as far as I know. And really, there's nothing here. But the idea of sort of making it to the end of the map, as it were, looking out over the vast ocean here, or the bay, I guess, and just seeing, I made it. I think one of the things that is fun about open world games, you always hear the wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle kind of thing. But having locations like this, in between, sort of dense packed areas, makes it feel, in a way, rewarding to explore. Even if you didn't actually find any treasure or anything over here, you found an area that has kind of a cool landscape and a little bit of a comfy atmosphere. Maybe I'm getting a little bit too esoteric here, but to me, I kind of like areas like that. And I remember this goes back to the nostalgia thing. Remember, you can always do this in Elder Scrolls games to peek under the ocean. This kind of goes back to nostalgia, definitely a lot. But I remember playing this game for the first time back in the day, coming down here. It was like summertime, so it was late at night. I had my fan up a little bit too high with the wind blowing through the trees. It was like very atmospheric, so that's sort of a memory that I have of this. Pure nostalgia, nothing to do with the overall quality of the actual area, but to me that makes this area somewhat special. Of course, we have this other island here with a bridge coming out to it. We got the ruins of a house here. What happened here? I don't know. Maybe there's a quest I'm not remembering that comes here, but I don't think so. It's just kind of a neat little area that you can come to, kind of contemplate what happened here, and just appreciate the landscape. So yeah, not too much else to say about that one, but definitely one that I think you should kind of waltz over here and check out. It's neat. All right, next one. All right, here's another pretty nice one. We're over here in County Kavach, kind of the grasslands area, right next to Camp Ailes. And it's not necessarily this exact location, but this general area. I feel like the grasslands area is an area that you don't come to that often over the course of playing the game. And in that aspect, actually coming over here feels kind of novel every time you do it. Definitely has a different feel to it than the rest of the game. So obviously we got swamps over here, we've got the Great Forest, we've got the snow-capped mountains, but the grasslands definitely have their own kind of feel to them. And to bring nostalgia into it a little bit again, I think that the moving grass and everything still looks good today, but back in the day when this first came out, it was mind-blowing, right? Having the trees and grass and everything moving. And I think we got a nice little glimpse of that here. Obviously, we don't have grass going out as far as the eye could see due to technical limitations, but we'll waltz down there in a second and check it out. But generally, I think this is a pretty good view. We've got Kavach there. I think that's Skingrad, right? And then I think if we were able to go up a little bit higher, we could see Anvil out in this area. Yeah, probably right over this hill. Maybe if we go up there, we could see it. But, yeah, again, I think that there are a few quest-related locations in here, obviously. Like, let's see, there's a fort here somewhere that is important for the story. That's part of a quest. Obviously, you have a Daedric quest over here. But yeah, I feel like just because maybe you don't spend as much time here as some other areas, it makes it a little bit more exciting when you do come here and kind of get to experience it. At least that's my take on it. But just having the grass, everything's a little bit more warmly colored, I guess, with oranges and yellows. And the tree's a little bit more spread out. It gives it kind of a different feel from the rest of the map. I really think they did nail in this game the sense of different areas around the map having sort of different feels to them. And so this is an area that definitely kind of embodies that. Again, this is kind of where we started, but it could be kind of anywhere around here. This is one where I didn't have a specific area. Shoot, maybe even next to this alien well. But I wanted to include the grassland area somewhere in here because I think it's kind of fun to just explore around. All right, next. All right, so we have another one here that is pretty obvious, maybe a little bit too obvious, but I think it just could not be included. This is the sewer exit / Vilverin area. Obviously, this is the first area that you really get as you come out into the world. Bethesda games are known for having that moment where you actually walk out into the open world, whether that's walking into Saint Denis for the first time, exiting the vault, or in this case, exiting the sewers, and seeing the sprawling world out in front of you, knowing I can go anywhere that I want. Unless it's over here, in which case I can't go there. But hey, I think this area really encapsulates that, and this being the first game by Bethesda to have this type of graphical fidelity was a huge step up from Morrowind in terms of visuals, of course. And this kind of encapsulates that whole concept. Now, if we were to go over here, I'm going to have to ask you to ignore the dead bandits, because this area would be inhabited, of course. But pretending that they are not here, were we to make our way past Vilverin, which probably would be the first dungeon that you venture into in your adventure, we make it up to, say, this area. What's cool here is that this is where the path branches, and, you know, if you didn't go right back into the Imperial city, you've got all these different areas that you can go towards. And, I mean, the landscape varies greatly if you go this way, if you go this way, or this way. And so it sort of represents that first kicking off point of your adventure, you know? But in addition to that, just is rather visually appealing, I think. The lake here, the grandness of the Imperial city, and again, just the feeling that the world is your oyster, or whatever expression you want to use there. Just a very cool, pleasant little area that you probably didn't come back to after exiting, assuming you cleared Vilverin. That also being where you're going to get your first alien statue starting on Bacano's questline, which is probably my favorite questline in the game. Yeah, definitely an area that plays on the nostalgia, but generally it makes a very good first impression when you exit the game. Especially if you're like me, and for every subsequent playthrough, you got a save that puts you right at the sewer, so you don't have to do the tutorial. You're going to be seeing this a lot, but definitely one to come back to and kind of take in. It's worth looking at, for sure. Alright, another spot here that I think definitely qualifies. We're over here on sort of the eastern part of the map. Closest landmark is probably Perad Shrine, which is right over here. We got this nice little area where the river kind of bends. We got a little waterfall. We got a walkway up to this alien well. And then, of course, Perad Shrine over here. Pretty pleasant. And I think another area that you would have just sort of wandered across if you were exploring. We'll just ignore the slaughterfish fighting for his life over there, by the way. But really not a lot over in this particular area. Like, obviously, Perad Shrine is part of a quest. And Macabentane is as well. But a little bit off the beaten path, and you wouldn't necessarily find it if you were just following major quests. But if we hop down here, some pretty pleasant stuff that we can check out. Like, this is pretty nice. These little steps cut into the landscape. We'll just back away slowly. But if we wanted to come over here and actually check out the waterfall, we can do so. Pretty nice. We got some Nirnroot over here, of course. But yeah, that's pretty pleasant, isn't it? I heard something. You know, all the wildlife and hostile creatures here are kind of throwing a wrench into the whole comfy aspect, but I think it still holds up, and definitely one that you could come check out and I think kind of enjoy. So yeah, let's move on to the next one. Alright, so similar to a couple of the other ones on this list, this one maybe isn't an exact location, but just kind of a general area. We're here in the Great Forest, basically right next to the Brindle home. Now, when I talk about things that are comfy and pleasant, just pretend that no quests ever happened in this area. But yeah, this particular spot right here sort of embodies the Great Forest as a concept. Again, bringing nostalgia into it. The first time that you wandered into the Great Forest, saw how huge it was, how big the trees were, everything swaying in the breeze, and the fact that you could run in here and literally just get lost in its massive expanse. That was pretty impressive. And really just looking out over here, it still looks impressive all these years later. I think this particular area kind of embodies that because you've got a little bit of a clearing where you can kind of establish a sense of direction, as it were. But in this general area, we've got a pretty dense sort of array of areas like Goblin Jim's Cave. And then, of course, we got a big Iliad ruin over here. So, pretty nice. You could definitely come here and just kind of chill, admire the landscape. But it also is sort of indicative of other things that are available in this area. The Great Forest still looks very impressive to this day. And if you have not just kind of wandered around in it, you're missing out. But if you've ever played Oblivion, you probably have wandered around in it because there is a heck of a lot of stuff here to do. And don't go to Hack Dirt. But anyways, yeah, I like this one quite a bit. Hopefully you do as well. Let's move on. Alright, and finally, I knew I definitely wanted to include one location from Shivering Isles in this video. And I couldn't think of a better one than up here at what I think is the highest point. We're over sort of in this area. Shivering Isles is unique, at least for me, in that I actually have no nostalgia for it because I didn't play it until just a couple months ago in sort of the later episodes of my Oblivion Overhaul series. So, unlike a lot of the other locations, there's no sense of nostalgia here. It's just appreciating this landscape. I will say I enjoyed Shivering Isles. I wish they'd leaned a little bit more into the surreal. I mean, this is neat, but I mean, we got these weird mushrooms and stuff. But I feel like it could have been a little bit more wacky and zany. But nevertheless, this area definitely gives you a big look at the overarching area. It's a pretty big area for a DLC. You've got, of course, the main city over there, the palace, and then the dual areas of Crucible and Bliss. And looking out over the two sides, you can kind of see the Mania area and the Dementia area, which is kind of cool. You can see the gateway over there. What are they calling it? The Gates of Madness and Passwall over there. So definitely one to come check out, admire the scenery. Again, I think it still looks fairly impressive even now. Somewhere around here, I don't remember exactly where it is, but it's not too far from here, is that spot where if you punch Sheogorath in the face, he teleports you up to the top of the world and drops you on it and kills you. It's around here somewhere, but I don't remember exactly where. So that's pretty cool. Oh, and then I didn't even mention, we got this huge creepy statue that looks at you, so that's something. Maybe that actually decreases the comfiness of it, but like I said, it counts for something. So, yeah. Come check it out. Would recommend. Alright, everybody. So there you have it. A number, I don't remember how many there were off the top of my head, of the comfiest locations in Oblivion. I think that this is a game that now, having completed it start to finish, all the DLC, most of the miscellaneous quests for the first time, really does hold up. And if you have never played it, I would definitely recommend it. Now, obviously, word just came out that I think they're doing a remake. You've got Sky Oblivion and that sort of stuff. Haven't really checked that out. Maybe it's worth looking into that. But the base game on its own, I think, really does hold up. Graphically, gameplay-wise, with a few tweaks, and just generally a very great time. I mean, even just glancing around here, obviously there's a little bit of nostalgia, like I mentioned in this video already, but man, I love it. I just love it. So with that, we are going to be retiring the Oblivion series from my channel. But do not fret. There is more Elder Scrolls, Oblivion, and general Bethesda stuff coming. In fact, shortly, I've got 2 full Morrowind total conversions that I played through, including a pretty neat one that's going to be coming sooner rather than later. And after that, I actually want to jump back into Oblivion with an Oblivion total conversion that I've never played before. That is literally a total conversion, replaces the entire storyline, land, and everything. So I don't really know much about it other than that a lot of people seem to like it, and so we'll be jumping into that one. And then I have other stuff planned in a similar vein, so if you enjoyed this series at all, please stick around. If this is the first video of mine that you've seen, then maybe check out some of my other content. Hope you enjoy your stay, and maybe stick around for some other stuff. I also would be interested if you have any locations that I sort of missed. I mean, this map is huge, right? So there could be plenty of other locations to check out. But do feel free to let me know. And otherwise, I think that I will just see you on the next video. This has been a nice little send-off for Oblivion. I love the game, but it's time to move on. So with that said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching. And I'll see you next time, sooner rather than later, on the next video. Until then, take care, and God bless.